Thank you, David. I'd like to welcome everyone to this session of DataManagementU.com's webinar series. I'm Anne Marie Smith, the executive editor of DataManagementU.com and your host for today's session. Let's move into our webinar housekeeping points. For those of you who are regular attendees, these will be common. Please answer the poll. The poll is on the screen and David will announce the results shortly. If you have a question, please pose the question in Q&A, not in chat. Q&A we will monitor closely and we will take questions for Andrea to answer as we have time and as they pertain to the topic. For chat, today we will be using chat to come up with business problems that an assessment and a strategy can work to resolve. So pay attention for when Andrea asks for those comments. If you're interested in these topics, datamanagementeducation.com has several courses on data management, data governance, metadata management, and we will be releasing a data literacy course shortly. We welcome all. Go ahead, David. Yes?
That's if I could ever finish it, but that's okay. It's now in my ballpark. And I will
it used to be mine, so now I can say that.
Exactly.
Follow us on Data Management U on LinkedIn. Go to the Data Management U page and follow the page. You'll get updates regularly on all our content, all our events. This webinar is streaming live on YouTube, but it's not just live. It's being recorded. So if you miss something or you love it enough that you want to go back and watch it again or share it with your community, you can do
Or
that.
if you can't sleep at night and you
that's
just
true.
can't get to bed, play this webinar. You'll be out cold quickly. Just kidding. Go ahead, Anne-Marie.
The slides are available on the website. Please feel free to download them. They are in PDF format. And last but not least, if you stay the entire hour, you will receive a professional development unit certificate. 1 hour, whole time. And you must attend the entire webinar. Thank you to our sponsors and partners. I'd like to mention our sponsors, EW Solutions, Octopi, OneTrust, and Metric Insights. If you belong to an organization that would like to sponsor a Data Management U webinar series, please let me know. We also welcome our partner organizations who are data management community professional organizations. IIM, the Institute for Information Management, worldwide, even though the name includes Africa. IDMA.org, the Insurance Data Management Association, and IABC, the Workers' Comp Boards. If you belong to an organization that you think would be a good partner for us, please let me know. Today's agenda. The title is Developing an Effective Data Management Strategy and Roadmap. What are you going to learn? Well, key foundational elements that can be used to deliver a quality assessment, an effective strategy, and a robust implementation roadmap. You'll get practical advice for managing through common challenges. Andrea is an expert at this, and she'll give you some consideration to how to get your program funded. Isn't that important? Mm-hmm. We'll have the discussion. We'll look at the poll results shortly, and then we'll come back for a conclusion. It's my distinct pleasure to introduce Andrea Thomsen, CDMP, who is the Enterprise Data Services Manager at SureScripts. However, Andrea has a wealth of knowledge and experience from her service in several very large, very interesting organizations. She has a background in enterprise data management, that's why she's here, and in enterprise architecture. She's well-versed in strategic planning. She has experience in maturing data and BI delivery functions and developing a wide variety of architecture capabilities. I recommend you follow Andrea on LinkedIn, but now I'd like to let Andrea take over as David talks about the poll.
Yes. So as Anne Marie mentioned, everybody, you are in for quite a treat. Andrea, we've known Andrea a long time. And to me, nothing beats real experience doing data management. Andrea has a wealth of it. And to me, I can't wait to see what she's going to present today. But let's look at our poll results. Anne Marie, the number one answer with 30% of the vote is we have a comprehensive data management assessment that we performed, and we created an enterprise data strategy that we are implementing now. So 30% was the number one answer. However, which I think that shows we have some very senior people on our webinars. I mean, that's one of the things that you and I talk about is we have really top grade people at Data Management U. But I think what's also interesting in this poll, look at the bottom two. Strategy, we don't have any strategy for managing data, 16%. And then we have not done an assessment on data management. So really those first two account for what? 43%.
Yes.
Are still at that immature state. So I'm not surprised that if we combine those two, we really see that still some companies have a ways to go.
Exactly. I also see that we have what people think is a comprehensive assessment performed, and they plan to create an enterprise data strategy, but they haven't done it yet. The trouble with leaving the assessment and not doing the strategy is that the assessment results get old.
That's it.
Then the strategy, if it's built from that, won't be effective. It's like the way the Philadelphia designed the Schuylkill Expressway. They did the roadmap and plan in the 1920s and then built it from that same plan in the 1950s.
But isn't that fairly recent for Philadelphia? Anyway, this doesn't shock me because, and you know, when we talk to organizations, it is pretty rare when an organization has actually gone through and built an enterprise data strategy. And to me, that's disappointing because it doesn't take that much energy to build this. I know when we're working with companies, work with a couple on digital transformation now, one of the first tasks, let's get those executives in the room and let's figure out our overall enterprise data strategy.
Right.
I think that's a great segue, by the way, to hand the ball over to Andrea. Andrea,
Absolutely.
I'm going to stop sharing this poll results and pass the baton over to you.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Anne Marie and David, for the warm introduction. And really enabling this platform is great to connect all of the data management professionals. It's really, truly great. So thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. In fact, this is one of my very, most favorite beloved topics in all of the things data management. My mission really is to help companies be positioned to use data as a strategic asset. And I love up-leveling data management capabilities. And what I've learned through the years is that really having this effective strategy is really the most important tool to create that buy-in and the plan to get there. So let's do this. From the survey results that we just did, you might be standing in that ground zero spot, right? Considering a strategy, not really sure. Or you might be in that place of it's the second or third time that you're refreshing a strategy, or maybe you're the cleanup crew in a strategy that wasn't as successful as it could have been. Nonetheless, we've got you covered. We're going to share some rock solid ways for you to be successful no matter where your starting point is, and really make sure that it is going to launch you and bring you into program execution. So let's start with talking about a little bit why do we need a data strategy in the first place, and what really is it? So I'd like you to think about, why are you here? What are some of those business challenges that your company is facing? It's important to lead with why and really truly understand what you're setting out to do. Maybe is your company in a spot where you need advanced analytics, and maybe the IT department has been struggling to produce even basic reporting, or maybe your employees are having a lot of challenges finding and sharing documents in the company, even if you might have bought some brand new leading edge technologies. So think about why you're here. Let's take a moment and jot it down. Share with me in the chat, share with us, what are some of those reasons why you think you might need a data strategy, okay? As we wait for some of those to come in, another aspect might be risk. So maybe your company is really highly regulated and you worry that you can't prove that you're going to meet those requirements. Maybe you're responsible for fixing that situation. So the stakes can be, very high in terms of what you're trying to achieve with a strategy, and really important. One of the things that I always think about, or really sticks with me, is there was a situation in 1 year, there was a company that spent $79 million in one single year sorting out the costs related to poor content management challenges. And it was, legal fees, fines, and people costs before they had an approach and a data strategy. So can you imagine that situation? The stakes are really high. It scares me. Nobody wants to be in that situation. And this is the strategy can really help you move through that type of situation. So Anne-Marie, maybe could you check the chat and let us know?
I am doing that right now.
Great.
Let's see what we've got.
Lots of great comments.
Lots of great comments. Help inform execs of the goals and to get support and buy-in.
Yes.
Yeah. A couple people said that. They talked about, hey,
Yes.
This is a great tool to get execs on the same page. And I really resonate with that one. That to me is, Andrea, if we were to really kind of pull, the curtain off of it, you or I could probably write a data strategy that would be 85% to 90% applicable to most companies. But that isn't the real value, right? It's getting the executives to work together.
Right. And it's really adapting to what your company's pain points and opportunities are.
Yeah.
So,
go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, if any come in, please let us know, Anne-Marie.
Okay. Regulations across state and country boundaries and how it affects the business on a global level. That's a pain point for this organization. Enhanced e-commerce experience for our customers seems to be a comment that we're seeing a couple times. Takes too long to find quality data for analytics and slows critical decision making. One participant says they started a data management program and are implementing certain functionality. We determine year to year what we do, but we don't have a long-term strategy that we can use to ensure that we're heading toward a common goal. There's a perfect reason to do a strategy. The organization is doing things in data management, but they're not coordinated and they don't have a strategic view that they can implement tactically. Developing shared goals and a purpose for our data collection in one coordinated institution. Without a data strategy, there's no leadership consensus. Another comment on the executive support. The organization has been acquiring other companies and have not been able to integrate the data and the systems.
Got it. So that's a good sampling, so lots of different reasons why your company might need to do this. I heard things about risk. We talked about business growth and e-commerce, mergers and acquisitions. So do these things, when you're thinking about your business problems, can you imagine that having better quality data, highly shared data, could help those business situations? And if you do, right, a data strategy might be for you. Do you have the data management practices and people in place to be able to entertain those large, lofty goals that you have? This is your opportunity to go after it and get funding and improve those scenarios. So those are a few reasons of the why. Pragmatically, I can tell you that you're going to need funding. You're going to need organizational support to create a strategy, and you're going to need a plan to get there. So those are good reasons why. A data strategy, as you can see on the screen here, what really is it, right? Some characteristics. It's formal. It has to be approved by the executive team. It's documented, and it explains what your plan is to move through the current state, the future state, the roadmap, and the business case to address your data management program needs. And it's done through an assessment process to help us get there. So with that, let's get right into some of the key elements for success. So to produce this data strategy set of artifacts, you're going to need to make sure you have all of these elements. So you can think of these as your key ingredients to be successful and to make sure that your strategy is going to get well understood and funded so that you can stand up that data management program to get there. So one of the things I was thinking about is it's sort of like a recipe. Are there any bakers out there, maybe chocolate chip cookie lovers? This is just like executing a recipe. These are the key ingredients, right? When you're making cookies, I have 2 teenage girls and they're constantly baking. You need 2.5 cups flour, you need 2 eggs, 3/4 cup sugar, baking soda. You get the point there. But it's like, if you use these common ingredients, your results are really going to turn out every time. And if you don't use the right ingredients, say you didn't use baking soda in your cookies, it's going to go south really quickly. It's just like that with the data strategy. These are going to get you success every time, and really making sure that it's consistent. And I would submit that consistency is quality.
Andrea, we have a question. Is an assessment one of those key elements for success?
An assessment is part of the proven approach, and it's absolutely part of the process. And we'll be talking about that. Yes. So the first block is executive support and funding. You really have to have at least one executive to start the process of your data strategy. You're going to need funding to do the strategy project, right? So you can start out that way and then build momentum, but the executive team is going to play a key role throughout this whole journey. They're going to be that initial funding pool for you to do the strategy, but then also you're going to need to really get the entire executive team on board by the time it's done. And you can use the process to get them on board throughout the journey of the milestones and deliverables in your strategy. Ultimately, you're not going to be successful unless you have the entire executive team on board. And this is just like any project or effort that's really important. You're going to need that funding. You need people. It's going to be change. So you really want their support and buy-in to do this. The next big piece is a data management framework. So this one I just love because it's so foundational to not only your strategy effort, but really your whole program that is either in place or that follows. So your data management framework, what you're looking at is the data management body of knowledge framework. So steal it, use it, it's there for you to make it easy. You can certainly customize your own at your own company and make it fancy. But what the framework does is it allows you to really share the scope and the interdependencies of the disciplines of data management and how they move together throughout your strategy. So each one of these 11 disciplines or functions has their own unique set of techniques, practices, tooling, skills, and contributions to the greater data management aspiration. So when you start your strategy, you're going to need to think about all of these pieces and what scope you're going to take on. And the best practice really is to do a broad strategy encompassing all of these components. And then if you have targeted areas that you need to really go in much deeper with, you can do targeted strategies in each one of these spaces, okay? So this is like the meat of your strategy. You're going to be talking about the current state, the future state, each one of these discipline areas, and what you need to do to move from your current to your future state in each. It's also a very nice tool to use as a bit of a taxonomy for your materials that you'll be creating, as well as communication and change materials used to educate the organization about what data management even is. Because often if you're starting in your data management journey, there's some folks at your company that might not even know what data management is, and you can use this as a great tool to educate and bring them along. So you're going to take that scope that we just talked about and making sure you have that, and then you're going to need a really nice approach. Just like any, project or effort, you need to plan what are your phases and your milestones and deliverables. So this is not unique, but it's a common strategy approach, right? And you're going to go left to right and make sure you do all of these steps in your strategy.
Andrea, when
Yes.
you say go left or right, do you mean you can start at the business case and work backwards? Or do you mean something else?
Good question, Anne-Marie. I mean, left to right, start with your strategic planning, your strategy planning. Like any good effort, you need to think about your purpose and your objectives and your scope of your strategy. Really get planful, create your team, make sure you've got sponsors on board, and just do, move through those pieces. Don't shortchange it.
Okay.
So, Anne-Marie, we're going to move left to right. So we're going to do that first. Then we're going to move through the current state assessment, move through a target state or future state articulation of where you want to go. Then we're going to have the roadmap that's going to close the gaps and articulate the efforts that you need to do to close between your current state and where you want to be at the company. And then, of course, the business case is going to pull it all together and give that strong rationale for why should we do this anyways.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
You're welcome. So it's important that you're going to get agreement and buy-in from your sponsorship for each of these major milestones. Now, this is a whole entire presentation in of itself. David only gave me 45 minutes, but I look forward to doing a mini series on this later on, because this is really the meat of like the inputs and the outputs of the process of your strategy. Right? These are going to be the starting steps that you need to get going.
We have a question before you go on. On
Sure.
that approach, can it be done many times in each one of the parts? A data security strategy, a data quality strategy, a data security assessment, a data quality assessment, et cetera, or should they all be done together?
Good question. So going back to the scope of your strategy, I would recommend that you do an overall broad strategy, and then if you have the dollars and time to go deep into certain disciplines, you can have sub-strategies in that. You can do them all at once, or you can iterate through it as well. But so it does depend on where your pain points and your opportunities are. But if you do just one strategy and say master data management or data warehousing, often if that's alone and sort of by itself, it's missing the complementary disciplines to come with it that are going to really make that one discipline successful.
I think you found a topic for the next session.
Lots to talk about there. But certainly you can do an overall strategy, and you can pick a couple pieces of the pie, if you will, or disciplines that you want to really go much deeper in and give more rich content to that area. Absolutely, you can do that and iterate. So not to put format over content, but your deliverables are really important. And I would suggest don't overlook thinking about all your materials and the templates. It's going to be really important to think how to manage all of your materials. You're going to have a lot of moving parts. And this is just a sample of a roadmap deliverable. But having these quality templates and producing them is really just going to get you closer to the executives saying yes. So the goal is, right, to get the funding, to get your program, and to get started. And it's going to be a lot easier for them to say yes if they can actually understand what you're sharing with them. And so please do take the time to think through your strategy templates. You know, is it going to be PowerPoint, Word? What are your roadmap samples? How are you going to pull this all together? And even if you're not doing it all internally by yourself and you are working with a vendor, you know, ask your providers or potential providers for samples. What are some samples that they have? And it certainly reflects on the professionalism as well.
Andrea, if I could jump in, I think there's a couple of critical points you brought up. You're speaking to executives. Let's not assume that they have spent any time studying data management. They wouldn't know what the difference between data governance is and data stewardship. And what I like about your sample here is in under 1 minute, you get exactly what you're showing. You're showing durations by quarter. You're showing cost impact, which is what executives love to see. It's aesthetically pleasing as I look at it. Those all count, especially to the executives, because they think, well, if she could at least match her colors and it makes sense, well, that's a plus. That's a plus, as opposed to something that they have to work at. We're probably going to lose them. So I just wanted to highlight it because I think this is a great example of a really nice deliverable.
Yeah, I mean, if people can't understand it, it's going to be hard to support it. Really, I think that's the bottom line. So, and also to your point, David, cater your deliverables to your audience, right?
Yep.
So you're going to have in the roadmap example, you're going to have a much higher level roadmap, perhaps for executives, depending on what they're interested in. And you're going to have maybe this detailed roadmap view as well to back it up, maybe, put it in the appendix, but you got to have it. You have to have a nice plan for how you're going to proceed through the work. Absolutely. Okay. This one seems so obvious, but it's not. I can't tell you how important it is to have the right team to do your strategy. And right, with anything, it's about the people who are going to make or break your effort. So you're going to need a core team, and I've suggested here what that's going to look like. You don't need herds of people, but we've talked about the sponsors, but you're going to really need seasoned data management professionals with deep expertise so that you get the credibility and the buy-in and the trust that you're going to need to bring this forward. We talked about going deep in some of the disciplines, right? You're going to need people who really understand these practices and techniques and how they actually fit all together and pull, all this material through. One of the things that I highly recommend and is really overlooked sometimes, I think it's gaining some momentum the last few years, but is to think about having a dedicated change management professional that can help you with the change process and communications. Again, there's going to be a lot of materials, lots of stakeholders, high change going to be is going to be proposed here, and really having them directly on your team is going to really help you move through it a lot better. And then finally, project management, of course, you want to make sure that you're moving this through on time, on budget, and potentially have a part-time or consultant on the finance side is something that maybe you've considered or maybe not, but that could also really help you when you're going to go create your business case and work with the numbers and figure out what's palatable for that organization to spend in a, in your roadmap. It's going to be really important to get that right. So consider that as well. What I would also recommend when you're thinking about creating your team is the soft skills. So great, you have capabilities with data management, but whether it's your internal employees or the consultants that you might engage, the leadership skills, the communication, conflict management, selling, influencing, presenting skills to leaders, those are all going to be really important, soft skills, if you will, that are going to help you be successful along the journey of your data strategy. So the final thing I would say on this is just a quick note on stakeholders. So one of the things I've seen that can go awry is when you try to bring on too many stakeholders into the core team that's producing these materials. It can quickly spin out of control if you try to have everybody have what I'd call, say, a voice and a veto. Very difficult to manage. So keep your core team tight. Make sure you've got good stakeholders that are providing rich inputs, but also keep it manageable. Think that really through in terms of who should be on your core team developing the materials versus who has a stake. Very different things. Often stakeholders know that there's a problem to solve and can provide rich input, but they might not know how to solve it. Okay, and we'll get into a little bit more of that as we talk about change management. I wanted you to have that little nugget. Next up is maturity models. So you're going to need some way of balancing your assessment. So the assessment process is going to be looking at where you are currently, where you're going, and again, how are you going to move or close that gap? And so the maturity models are going to be really valuable for you because they allow that assessment of the company's current situation, and then help you identify reasonable measures for that continuous improvement. Now, there's a whole chapter of this written in the data management body of knowledge, just as a reference for you. But it's going to be really important to you really examine this, because this is really the core of trying to articulate, well, what does it really mean to be maturing along this journey? And it's going to be able to help you share successes and accomplishments, and it's going to be able to keep you continuously improving. No company wants to know that, hey, I'm a level 2 or I'm a level 1 or I'm a level 3. No, I can tell you that companies and executives don't care what level you're at. What they really want from you through your data strategy is articulating, what does that mean? What am I going to be able to do? What's it going to feel like? What new capabilities will I have if I invest in metadata management and I can move our organization from level 1 to level 2? That's the art that you want to bring out in your strategy when you're considering your maturity models. So I encourage you to learn a lot about this, but this is going to be definitely a critical component. And there's lots of ways to express the maturity. As you can see, just little samples, you can light it up with colors and all kinds of fun things to express it, but really foundational for you to get going with. The next piece is tying to business strategy. So you're already starting to think about that by the questions that you were pondering and maybe why you're here in the first place at this session. The data management strategy really needs to tie back to what you're going to accomplish in the business, because that's what's going to resonate, that's what's going to sell, that's what's going to, incent the executives to invest and fund your data management program. So you're going to need real business drivers. And this actually can be a lot. This is super fun, actually. As you move through the strategy journey, you're going to find so many things that are happening in different functions and aspects of your company. You can do that through your current state assessment. You're going to get to know people. You're going to find out what their pain points and opportunities are, what their goals are, and what are their challenges with data. And what you can do is you can harness those rich examples that they're providing you, and you can map it back. Here's an example, right? You can map it back to key business drivers. What if we could do better in that? What's it going to do? Is it going to help us increase revenue? Is it a cost play where you want to take costs out of the company? Manage risk, right? Lots of risk with not having data management in place. Or maybe it's just improving your decision support, which is also, a critical enabler. These are the kinds of things that your executives want to hear. And your job is to figure out how to find those rich stories and pull them through. This is what's going to really sell and allow you to get funding to do the things to improve the practices and processes of your data management practices. And last but not least, change management. So this again is probably the most underestimated, but probably the most important aspect of this whole thing, is having a really good change management approach. So change is it's the hardest element really, because the whole data strategy is about change. You're going to be introducing things that the company hasn't done before, and introducing new techniques or practices, and people need to know, well, why would I do this anyways, right? I can't emphasize it enough to really make sure that you've got a good change plan, a good communication plan. Lots has been written on this topic, and a stakeholder plan, really understanding who in the organization is going to need to be bought in at really all levels of the organization. Explaining why we're doing the things we are and having a constant interaction point is going to be important to move people along through the journey, so that we can be all on board, by the time our strategy is being pitched. One of the things that I like to think about in this space is the human element. And really, this is just basic human interaction, right? It's going to be really important to listen to various stakeholders in the organization. Just, we were given 2 ears and 1 mouth, right? Really listen to the organization, listen to the people. What are their problems, their challenges, their opportunities? What are their fears? What are the things that you need to work through with them to help them get on board with what you're trying to mature or achieve with your data strategy? One of the things you do not want to do is call their baby ugly, right? This is very detrimental to your strategy. You want to make sure that you're bringing people along and really connecting with them in a meaningful way, so that they can help support or champion for you in their team or their contribution in their part of the function. So figure out how you can make that work, and you will be very successful with your strategy. So those are the big rocks, the big elements to consider as your ingredients to your strategy.
Andrea,
Yes.
one question. How do you choose a consultant to help?
Great question. Love that. Love it. Love it. So use this material. These are your building blocks. These are your ingredients. When you are going out and evaluating vendors, ask them if they have these things, right? Do they have a framework? Do they have a maturity model? Do they have, what is their approach, right? What is their skills and depth? What are their things they're going to bring as the right team? Really ask good questions about these building blocks and what they can bring to the table. And I think, you'll be able to assess the trade-offs, and you'll be able to see the differences across vendors or consultants in this space you might be evaluating.
Thank you.
So challenges. These are some of the top challenges that I've seen in doing this. There are many, but these might be some tips to help you smooth it out. So the first thing we just got done talking about, right, is having that change management professional on the team. The resistance to your strategy and moving through this is going to happen. So for sure it's going to happen. So you just don't know where it's going to happen or who it's going to happen with. So be prepared, be proactive, communicate, and do those rich things that we talked about. The second piece is most likely, I'm going to say, what will prop up is a pressure to deliver and execute data management before you actually have the capabilities in place. So, right, this is a planning activity, and organizations will tend to want to, like, how do we get to executing, right? I want my analytics project. I want, this stood up. And so you're going to need to balance this and set up some expectations in the front to talk about, like, this is the phase that we're in. And after this strategy phase, I'd recommend having something called a preparatory phase before you are able to execute, because you're going to need to stand up maybe a new operating model, new practices, new disciplines, some new skills might need to come at the table. So you're going to have to, like, frame, this is where we are at, this is what's going to be next, to prep the organization, and then we'll be able to execute our data management projects, in a different capacity. But to help kind of move through that need to execute and move through that quickly, you can have some doable quick wins in your roadmap. Make sure they're palatable and possible, but that's one way that you can also keep moving through the big strategic pieces, but then execute some technical pieces as well. Pick a project, pick something that you can show some quick wins as well. Okay. Another big piece is buy-in on the data strategy. And on that, what'll happen sometimes is, yeah, we're on board with the data strategy. This looks great. But then it kind of falters in the execution because the funding doesn't get in place. So it seems like we're on board, but we're not getting funding to actually do it. So the roadmap and your rollout plans are going to be really important to make sure that it's realistic, that you've got the right budget cycle in the organization identified, you know exactly what you're going to need to do, how much it costs, what's that next step, and really ask for that action on that roadmap to take at least the next step. So really important stuff there. And we'll get into that in just a couple minutes on the funding. And then finally, just data management is not well understood. Use that framework we talked about, introduce concepts and educate along the way. That's going to bring you, pretty far along the journey. So let's talk a couple minutes about funding before we do some questions. So one of the key ways you're going to be able to do this is through something we call business champions. So as you go out and start making your current state assessment, you're going to be talking to people in the business about their opportunities and pain points. Find out who these people are that can connect the business problem with the data management solution and kind of walk the walk with you. They're out there, you just have to find them. You can find them through the org charts. You can set up meetings with people you don't know. They will emerge, and you will find them, but they're like gold to your data strategy, because they're going to be able to articulate the reason why you need this data management program in a business way. And what that can do for you is, by them selling it or sharing that with their peers and their leaders, it can actually influence those executives who you need at the table to fund your strategy. Okay. It's going to be really important to make those connections, build those relationships, figure out how they can help you be supportive. Now, they might not know how to solve it, but they can certainly, come to the table with you and connect through those rich examples. Okay. So the other piece of this is a couple other nuggets on funding considerations. So you've got your business champions, they're helping you sell the story, maybe helping you figure out the business case for doing so in their terms. What you need here is, in terms of funding, for sure, you have to have, again, an executive, a director, or a VP at that initial launching point that's going to say, yep, you're right, we need to do a data strategy, and give you that initial budget. Okay, that's going to be critical in the beginning. Oftentimes it might take months or even years, frankly, to get to that starting point, but that's okay. But you must influence and pre-sell the concept and get one of those levels engaged up front. And you can totally do this through some of the techniques we talked about, pulling out those rich examples, doing good presentation, driving it home. That is really going to be critical. And then the follow-on is going to be, okay, now you've got your data strategy. How do I make sure that it's going to get, funded? One of the things that I'd recommend is presenting multiple options. So when you get to that roadmap phase, do not propose a roadmap, for example, that says that I need to, hire 10 people for data management, when the organization might only be, in general, hiring, say, 5 people in IT per year. It's way incongruent. It's not gonna resonate, right? You need to find funding options and roadmap options that are going to be palatable for that organization, that align with their spending and their tolerance for spend in a given, budget cycle. So definitely spend a lot of time on this. Make sure that it's right sized for your company. And again, enlist that financial guru who can also help you understand that. Those are a couple of the things that I would recommend doing. And again, wrapping that round with the business champions and the good examples of how you're going to help the organization is going to go really a long ways. So those are a couple tips. Again, probably spend all day talking about the depth of that, but hopefully that's a good primer for you. In summary, we've got great foundational elements. Use these key elements to assess your vendors, to make sure that these are present in your data strategy and roadmap. We've talked about some of the common challenges that you might face. I hope you've picked up a few nuggets along the way in terms of managing through that. It really does work. I'm confident that you can do this. You're going to be able to drive home and achieve those company objectives that we talked about in the beginning. And I truly want to know how your strategies turn out. And if you have any ideas on other building blocks, please do share. I'd love to learn from you as well. So
Andrea,
thank you.
You had brought up a point on corporate strategy, and this is an area I've spoken about for so many years, that when you're building your data management program, when you're trying to get support, especially from the executives, go look at your company's corporate objectives. They're always going to have 1 to 5 of them, because if you can show how data management supports 1 or more of those, then when somebody's arguing against you, they're really arguing against the business strategy. And and that's what I try to do. Like, I think of an insurance company once where they had a goal to double their revenue in the next 5 years. This is a ridiculously large company. And if you're going to double your revenue, there's only 4 ways to do it. One, you can buy the revenue, meaning purchase other insurance companies. Very hard to do that. Number 2, you can charge more for whatever it is you're selling. As you know, you cannot do that in the world of insurance. You'll get annihilated. You can sell more of whatever it is you sell. Well, if you have an auto insurance policy, do you need 2 of them? No. So really the only way to grow is either to buy the revenue or use the 4th way, sell somebody something you don't sell them today. So if I sell you an auto insurance policy, maybe we can sell you a home insurance policy. And we were able to show data management would enable cross-sell and 360-degree view of customers. So if you wanted to argue against it, you are arguing against a goal of doubling the revenue, which was set by the CEO. So I just think your point on strategy is critical.
And
Yep,
Andrea,
you can.
Good, Andrea.
I was just going to say, another way to do that and to bring it home, the corporate objectives, absolutely. You can actually catalog projects that are happening or are highly desired by your company, and then tie it right to, okay, that project is going to be enabled by master data management and data quality and metadata, and you can show directly how the data management functions will support that project. Another technique.
Absolutely. I call it coattailing.
we have a question that is perfect for Andrea, which is why I almost interrupted. What is the difference in the data management strategy development for a large organization versus a mid-sized organization? And since you've worked at both, you can speak to this nicely.
Yes. Interesting. You know what? I don't think it's that much different, frankly. The elements are the same. So there's nothing here that you necessarily would do different in terms of the key, the methodology, the approach, the elements to success that we talked about here. You're going to need to do that regardless of the size of your company. Certainly a larger organization, you're going to have more potentially business units, more functions, more people, that kind of thing. But, you know, so it might be bigger. It might take some more time to get through talking to all the different, business units and things like that. But all in all, the process is really the same, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I would agree. Thank you for the question and the answers. That was our last question, which is perfect timing.
Yes, because we only have 4 minutes left.
And I'd like to, somebody asked, you mentioned finance, what about IT? I guess that
for the core team?
Yes, I guess so.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I say data management professionals, those could be absolutely coming from your IT organization that have rich knowledge about data management best practices, tools, technologies, skill sets with data. Yeah, IT is definitely effective.
And the same person asked a question about any tips on handling a rogue IT department.
A rogue IT department, shadow IT, potentially. Yeah, perhaps there's a reason why they're rogue, right? Or you use that term. So perhaps there's gaps in the data management organization, processes, techniques to get data delivered timely, quality, et cetera, to the business, and they've taken it upon themselves to do it. That is a sign, a symptom of needing a data strategy. It gives you rationale and a reason. So, approach them, understand what the pain points and opportunities are. Again, is it they can't get analytics out of IT fast enough, so they need to take it upon themselves. There's usually some reasons in there that are going to be really rich for you to uncover what's going on and where you need to provide some improved capability.
Thank you, and sorry for interrupting. let's conclude this for now because we only have a couple minutes. I want to thank Andrea. Andrea, you have a email you can share with people who want to contact you for additional questions?
Yes, please do. And it's published out there too, but please contact me anytime.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
That was great. And I can see a wealth of follow-on webinars from you.
Happy to. Each one of those is, you know, there's a lot of depth and breadth in each one of those elements for sure.
Yes. I'd like to talk about our next webinar, which is on data management assessment. Specifically, data governance assessments. Because data management and data governance assessments are crucial for success. They're one of the building blocks Andrea spent quite a bit of time on, and David Marco, who is our charming host today, will be our presenter on Thursday, July 29th. You can register now on the datamanagementu.com website at the data management webinars. Register now because seats will fill up quickly. Thank you so much to everyone who attended. I hope you'll come back. And in the meantime, if you want to learn more about these topics, we have online courses on data management, on data governance, on metadata management at datamanagementeducation.com. We hope to see you again next month and in future months. Last Thursday of the month is our webinar day. And remember, you can review this on EW Solutions YouTube channel. David, over to you.
David, over to me. Well, I thank Andrea. Thank you so much for coming here. This was a fantastic, we knew it was going to be tons of information. I look forward to seeing everyone next month when we talk about the data governance assessment.
Thank you so much to everyone for your comments on the excellence of this presentation. I agree with you. Have a wonderful rest of the day and a wonderful weekend.
Take care, everybody.